Well, here now we're going to try and finish off this last portion before Tfilas Arvis. Yuvan Mashkosu Vayitain Lacho Elikim Mital Hashamayim. That was the bracha that Yitzchak Avinu gave to Yaakov. And we're familiar with the prior section to that, where the Torah explains the detail that Yitzchak intended giving that bracha to Esau. And due to the initiative of Rivka, Imenu, and Yaakov, then the brachas be'emes came to Yaakov Avinu Boyal. And the intention of Yitzchak was to bench Esau. And we saw that nonetheless the bracha that he gave him was Vayiten L'cho Elikim, and we were also medactic in that the Shem Elikim L'cho is not the Shem Gavoya B'yoter, the Shem Amiti of the Eibush is the Shem Havaya, and the Shem Elikim is indicative of Gavura V'tzimtzum. Nonetheless, what's obviously a tremendously significant bracha that so much was made out of it, and we see that when Yaakov gained it, it was a tremendous benefit for him, and Esau regretted terribly having missed on the brachas. So we see that they're very significant inyan in the whole development of the Jewish people. So the wonder was, why is it written Davke the Shem Elikim and not the Shem Havaya? That was one of the diktukim that we made. That V'yitein L'cho Elikim Mital Hashamayim, and we brought down from the Medrash Zeh Mikro, and that was only just a beginning of the statement of the Medrash that Shmanei Ha'oretz was referring to Mishnah, and V'Reiv Dogan V'Siresh was referring to Gemara and halachas, agadatas. The pirush being that Yitzchak benched who he thought was Esau, but Lamaisa he benched Yaakov Avinu with the inyan of Torah. First of all, Torah Shebiksav Mikra, and then the inyan of Torah Sheba'al Peh. In Torah Sheba'al Peh itself, all the details that we saw, Gemara, halachas, medrash, agadatas, all the many multifarious details that there are in Torah Sheba'al Peh. And the question was, Ma Beirachoi Batoira, why did Yitzchak bench Yaakov, thinking that it was Esau? Why did he bench him with Torah? The Haloi Nitna Torah L'Yisrael. Later on, anyway, the Torah was going to be given to the Jewish people, and we saw that that was a deliberate kavana and purpose in the creation, right from the beginning, that at a certain point Torah would be given to the Yidden. Ve'ilu abracha, which is given by any great person like Yitzchak, well, that's a dova which comes off Sachidish. Had it not been for his bracha, then that Inyan wouldn't have been miskala to the person, and it helped him and assisted him and brought him tremendous advantages. That if it hadn't been for that bracha, then he wouldn't have had those milas and those advantages. That's one of the whole inyanim of a bracha. When you bless a person, you bless him with something that he wouldn't have had in the normal way had you not given the blessing. And it's a tremendous advantage to him that he got that blessing. So the kasha was that anyway, Yidden, albeit not at that point in history, but albeit in a time around, they were going to get the Torah anyway. So what was the idea of benching him with Torah, with Balavachi? He and his descendants were going to get the Torah at the time it was meant to be given to them anyway. Achar Inyan, we saw that, however, the Inyan was the Masha Nitna Torah L'Yisrael, Hainu Kamoshi Hipiprinas Oyer Yosha. A Kamoshi Nisbur Liyil Deluchais Roshainais, Zer B'chinas Klolos HaTorah. The Eraisa Michoch Manafkis, Shezer Kamoshi HaTorah Hipiprinas Chochma Brura. Vanim Shechor B'chinas Oyer Yosha. So here we see the definition that we saw earlier, benegir to the actual Matan Torah per se, the actual giving of the Torah to the Yidden 50 days after they got out of Mitzrayim on Har Sinai. The Torah, the way it was given, and the intention at that particular moment in the giving of the Torah was that it should be in a even of Yosha, which means Milmaila Lamata, albeit which would be Miskala to the Mata, to the people Lamata, but it would come in a even of direct descent in divinity itself, Milmaila Lamata, from above to the receivers below. And in that Gufa, we find that the Gemara tells them, we brought down other Maimarei Chazal, that had it not been for certain things which caused the Yerida, including the Chet Ha'ego, and later we saw a further more specific in the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu hit the rock instead of speaking to it. Had it not been for those drastic Yeridas, then it would appear that Yidden would have only needed what they got in Matan Torah, Begolui, which was Yasser Sadibres, and maybe the other Sforim of the Torah Shebiksav, the Ainu, the Torah and the Naviim and the Kesuvim, or according to one opinion, it would have been enough just the Chamisha Chumshei Torah and Sefer Yehoshua, meaning that the Luchos Rishonais would have been accompanied by the Chumash, as we call it, the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, and Sefer Yehoshua would tell the story of the conquering of Eretz Yisrael, but no more would have been required. In other words, that the original giving of the Torah was to Yidden how they were, B'tachlis HaMaila, having come out of Mitzrayim and having gone through the purification of themselves through Sfiras Ha'omer, as we mentioned, and other inyanim which granted them a much higher status than when they left Mitzrayim. And had they received the Torah, then the state of the world and the state of the Yidden would have been such that their Oifen Avodah would have been to conquer the world, Al Yidei Torah, and to make the world a kli to Elokus just through the usage of the Chamisha, the Luchos Rishonais and the Chamisha Chumshei Torah L'maisa. In other words, it would have been a Olam Gavoya Yosef B'Maila, more a kli to Gilui Elokus, and Yidden themselves would have been on a higher Madrega, and therefore they would have been able to be Makabel, the Torah, how it was, and through that bring the Gilui of the Ratzon of the Eibishter into the world as it was at that particular point, and that would have been Ki'ilu, the shleimus of the whole creation, as it's much from the viewing that we had earlier, benegir to Matan Torah, how it was purely mitzad Matan Torah. Therefore we saw that the Klolos of the Seres HaDibris and the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, or they came from Sfiras HaChochma. Well, we saw the Chochma, albeit is the first of the Eser Sfiras, but it's also a Gilui Milmaila Lamata HaChochma Mi'ayin Timotzei, and we saw the Torah is Mi'chochma Nafkis. And the way the Torah was, having derived from Sfiras HaChochma, it would have been a Chochma Brura, a clear and purified and clarified Chochma. In other words, all the Inyanim would have been clear, all the Inyanim that are written in Torah Shebiksav would have been explained and known by the Yidden anyway, through their Madrega and through the Gilui Elokus that they were given, B'Shas Maisa, and Mamela would have been Nimshach all of the Inyanim into the world, but Derech Oyer Yoshar. Yidden would have been only a medium to bring Gilui Elokus into the world, and that's Milmaila Lamata, and the function of Yidden would be merely purely Kalim to Elokus in order to be Mamshich and Megala Elokus Lamata into the world. And that's the situation that the Eibishter had in mind at the actual giving of the Torah of Sinai. And that's called Chochma Brura, in other words, a clarified and purified Chochma that would have been Mizgala in the world in a way that the world would have been a kli to be makabel that chokhmah. Like we saw Beneget, the Talmud Yerushalmi, we also saw that language occurred, the union of a chokhmah brura, the being as it is on a much higher level. The inyonim al chaponim which are required to be revealed are revealed without struggle, without helim v'hester. They come directly, even boru and even yosha. So that was the situation prior to the Cheta Ego. Aval beluchas v'achreinois, but the luchas v'achreinois already came after the whole tikkun of the Cheta Ego, how much it was possible to be matakin it. And Moshe Rabbeinu went up another twice onto Har Sinai in order to be mechaper, that he could to atone for the terrible blow at the Cheta Ego. And then he went up again the third time to be mekabel the luchos ha-shniyos, and that's what we call luchos ha-chreinis, the latter luchos. It's nitno davki through the luchos ha-chreinis, medrash, halachos, vakodes, prote ha-Torah. Well, we see that the Torah divided itself into a multitude of different details, and they express themselves in halachos, and so on, the famous Lashon which occurs in many places, that the halachas have no number. The halachas ein mispar, that each situation in the world demands new halachas and new developments and new dikdukim and new learning in each situation where Yidden have been from the time of the giving of the luchas achreinos. And then we saw the union of medrash. There's also a ribui of biurim and pirushim on all the pesukim of the Torah, and I got it as similar to the union of the medrash, but more how it occurs in the Gemara. And so we saw that that's a tremendous number of detailed inyonim. The shoroshon b'chinas ta'alumeis chokhmah. We saw that they come from the hidden madregas of chokhmah, not chokhmah how it's a sphera in Olam HaAtzilas, not chokhmah how it's bekolui, but they come from the hidden shorosh and the hidden madregas of chokhmah in the next room. Okay. And in the hidden madregas of chokhmah, and like we saw the posik, vayaged lecho ta'alumeis chokhmah, that the Eibush will tell you the hidden levels of chokhmah, and we saw that was referring to the luchas achreinos. Yenemeson was brought down that vayaged lecho ta'alumeis chokhmah kiflayim l'tushia, that those ta'alumeis chokhmah, they're like a double eater, a double giving of power to overcome all the situations that brought about in the world to the Chetei Tzadas. Ve'akavona, and what was the purpose in giving in the Luchas Achreinos so many details and such a ribui amount of Torah? And we saw that was one of the questions that we asked, that L'chora Yidden earned by that Chet. It was almost like a sinner earning that he got so many different inyonim which were all Torah. Had we not sinned them, we wouldn't have had all those giluyim, harayah, mitzad the Torah. However, we saw that the answer was that the tremendous avodah which is required to apply all of those details to the situation of the world, and to be to prepare the world for the ultimate Gilui Elokus, which will be Dafki now Liyosid, well, that's a tremendous amount of work. So that takes away the kasha of Choyta Nishka. So we saw the Kavona Bazeh, what was the purpose in giving all this tremendous detail and dividing the Torah into all sorts of different passages and sections with all the ribui ha details. B'hakavona b'chtei lavara birudim adidei shadidei zeh magiyim lamayla v'yoser gam mipchinas helem ha'atzmi d'chokhmah. We saw that the kavana in that was that through all these details and all these protim and the new situation in the world that they came to be mataking, through that we reach a much higher level, even more than the Helem Ha'atzmi of Chokhmah. Now that was explained in the previous Maimah, in Avram Zokin, the Rebbe was marek over there, that through the effort in studying the Inyan of Torah, how it was after these Inyanim occurred, the union of Biru Kol HaKushiyas in the Gemara in Talmud Bavli, and all the Yagiyah which is necessary in Torah, the struggle and the effort. Through that you reach, as we saw, the Mokeh of Chokhmah, how it is in the Chwech HaYuli Shebenefesh, and we saw Lamaila, that's the union for Talum, it's Chokhmah, the union for Chokhmah Stimoah, Chokhmah, how it is in Keser. Of in this particular drush, we said that even more than that through the union of the Biru HaHalachos, particularly in Talmud Bavli, and we come to an even higher Madrega. We saw the Torah, how it is Mitzad Atzmusei, and we call it the Shashuim Atzmiyim, the Tainug, the Eibishter, Haposhet, the Etzem Tainug, the Eibishter, in the Torah, how it is Miyuchad B'Atzmusei Zborah. And we saw that was Dafki through an even higher Inyan, that through the Yagiyah and the effort and the struggle in Torah, particularly in the Kashiyas and the Stiris and the Tirutzim Harayah and Talmud Bavli, that we purified the Etzem Inyan of the Torah itself. And then we have to say that when the Rebbe mentioned Siddur Lashon Birudim, if we look carefully in the whole Maimon, and we see that those Birudim were not so much what we talk about normally, the Avodas HaBirudim in the world, but they were the Birudim in Torah itself. But we saw that Mitzad the Yerida of the Chet Tzadas at the beginning, and then these other Yeridas that occurred through the Chet Egel, and so on, through Moshe Rabbeinu hitting the stone, that are speaking to it, and we saw that there was a form of Peselas even in the Inyanim of Torah themselves. And like the Alter Rebbe is Masber in Tanya in Igeres HaKodesh chapter 26, where he's Masber that until Mashiach will come, there's a certain avodah in the Indian of learning Torah, which is to purify certain small aspects of Peselas which creep into the actual purity of the Torah itself. And then we saw that in the Sfaras of the Torah there's a certain lack of clarity which can only be purified by the Kashiyas and the Tirutzim and the Pilpul. And we saw that through that Pilpul you come to the Emes Amitiyas, a kavana in every prat, how it is in Torah, that you literally purify the Sfaras of Torah themselves from the Peselas, like he's masber there, the Alter Rebbe in Tanya, Barichas that is brought down from the Zohar Kodesh, the Kashiyas, like a Helen Vehester, Mitzad the Klippers, and they come from the fact that there's a certain lack of clarity and a certain, what you might call, heavy Peselas in the actual teachings and the Sfaras of the Torah itself. Through the purification, which we call Birudim, in the limit of Torah itself, then you came to an even higher level, and it was explained over there in the previous Maimah, that you come mamish to the Shurish of the Torah B'Atzmusei is Barak mamish. And that's a Birur in the Indian of Torah itself, not so much Indian of Birudim in the world, but as like we saw, the Indian of Birudim in the actual limud HaTorah Atzmai, and that was the Milo Talmud Bavli, that what can be achieved in that Yagi and that effort in the struggle and the Pilpulim and the Kushiyas in Talmud Bavli, well, that can't be matched by any other Indian. I feel all the miles that we found in Talmud Yerushalmi, because dafki through that we come to the Ur Atzmi, the difference being that Ur Atzmi will only be Miskal Eliosi. And therefore Talmud Yerushalmi has got a mile that mitzad the Giluim, mitzad the actual Gilu Elikus, which is there, afilu bisman hazer, afilu bisman sha'odam misasek belimud Talmud Yerushalmi, then he has already that which is can compare to what we saw before, the Chokmah Brura, how it is mitzad Torah Shebiksar. And so, therefore, the struggle in the Birudim, in Torah itself, is dafki in Talmud Bavli, and the emesis galus of that effort and that purification, which occurs even in the prati of the Torah themselves, well, that's going to be dafki taken from Yad when Moshiach will be misgala. V'hinei said the Rebbe brachos eilu, these brachos which are given by Yitzchak, you b'dei levarer b'hem v'al yodom. We see that the very purpose that Yitzchak gave these brachos, that he had in mind to purify something. He wanted to be mevarer. He wanted to clear up and make pure some situation that he was aiming at. but that's why he gave the brachas. Originally he wanted to bench Esav, so why on earth would he want to give Esav a bracha? Esav was a Rasha, and we can't be matad that Yitzchak didn't know, because it's brought down clearly in certain places and cities. We have to say that he did know, that Yitzchak was for sure aware of what sort of matzav Esav was in. So if he was giving him brachas, and the kasha and the surprise and the amazement becomes tremendous. What's he doing benching Esav, or even wanting to bench Esav? And therefore the answer is that he wanted to purify Esav. He wanted to be mavarer him, to elevate him, and to bring out the great mileage which were hidden inside Esav mitzad the Eretz of Torah. If you remember, we had about that before, both in the previous Maimah and in this one. So therefore it follows that Yitzchak had a mind, a yinim, which is what we call birah. He wanted to purify and elevate something when he gave these brachas. Just that he wanted to give them to Esav, b'lechatchila, v'toah b'zeh. The Rebbe said it's well known that was a mistake on the part of Yitzchak, wanting to be mavarer through these brachas, his son Esav. These purifications, the elevation of the Torah to the Yichud, and to be makabel from the Torah through the Yichud with Atzmusi Yisborach, that can only be carried out through Yaakov or Avinu, not through Esav. And like we brought down, but had that high madrega that was hidden in the brachas, had it reached Esav, then it either it would have caused in him a complete bitul, or it would have been just swallowed up, would have just gone through him and not have had any effect. And Dafki, when those inyonim reached Yaakov, then they were able to carry out their proper task. And so from that we see that the purpose of these brachas was not just Stam Torah, not even Torah the way it was going to be given later at Matan Torah, because the way it was given at Matan Torah, it didn't involve this whole idea of birur and elevation and clarification. So if we're going to say that Yitzchak had in mind that when he gave that when he gave the bracha to Yaakov, then we have to say that there was a special kavanah in this bracha to give Yaakov a power to be mavarer inyonim in Torah gufa, and to reach through the union of Torah, and particularly through the yagia in Torah, to reach a high level, which is miyuchad with the atzmus, which wasn't necessarily the kavanah in Matan Torah itself. And afilu, we have to say, even in the luchos ha'achreinos, in that itself, the ultimate shleimus and the ultimate perfection, that would be reached through the yichud b'atzmusei, and eventually only liasid lover. So therefore, that's the teretz of when Yitzchak gave these inyonim, he wasn't just giving the Torah k'moishe hoya b'matan Torah. He was giving him the meaning for yigiyah shabbat, the meaning for effort and struggle, and the ability through that to bring the Torah back through all the yeridas that would occur in the generations to come, to its yichud be atzmusi yisborach, and therefore to cause a much greater revelation in the world. So that's the teretz, that he didn't mean the union of Torah through how it was alidei Matan Torah, but a much deeper union, which is precisely the union of struggle and yigiyah in Torah. V'alzehu habrachos b'kdei levarer. Like we saw, it doesn't mean to be mavarer the world so much, but it means the union for yigiyah and effort in Torah to bring about the yichud, the returning of or the revelation of the Torah, how it's miyuchad b'atzmusi yisborach. And that's what Yitzchak said, Mital Hashomayim and Mishmane Ha'oretz V'reiv Dogon V'siroish. We saw that they were referring to Mikro, or to Mishnah, and to Halacha, and Agaditas. Dahainu Prote HaTorah Davke, Shebekoyach Zeh Yuchel Levarer Es Esav, V'alitei HaBirurim Yeh HaGilui D'Prinus Atzmus Ein Seif, D'Prinus Shashuim HaAtzmiyim Mamish. Now, here's an interesting nakuda, which didn't really occur in the Lashon of the Here we see a new nuance that the Rebbe's brought in here, somewhat in addition to what he actually said inside the Maimon. And he says that the purpose of the Proti HaTorah being given to Yankiv was that through that there should be eventually a birur in Esau. And that through those birurim there would be the gilui of Atzmas Ein Sof, Shashui Ha'atzmiyim Mamish. So now we have to think for a moment, what does that mean? We just said that when Yitzchak gave the bracha, he thought anyway he was giving it to Esau. If I remember, was it a pshat that he gave the bracha to Levarer as Esau? I'm sorry, that there should be the ability through Torah to be Mavarer Esau, or he thought he was benching Esau at the moment. What is it that through Torah there would be a birur in Esau? And therefore we have to say that we're talking about the kavanah that came about through the actual giving of the brachas down that went to Yankiv. And the purpose was to give Yankiv the ability Levarer as Esau. With that, we could say the Rebbe is being mataritz, he's being maramas to a very interesting kashya, and that's what brought down from the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach in our Maimon. The Rebbe said a very brief Maimon, albeit that he said on this whole sugya that's brought down here, when it get to the blessing of Yitzchak to Esau and what he had in mind and what was the purpose, and the whole nekuda here of Yigiyah b'Torah and the birur shalidei Torah. That how can we say that Yitzchak had a mistake? Torah, that's what we said. That Yitzchak had a mistake. A lashon like that is a very big new thing in Chassidus to say that. It's what we call a chidush, to use an expression that one of the fathers of the Jewish people should have a mistake. And what is it a pshat? That the fathers are always hein hamerkova. It's brought down in the Medrash that our forefathers were a merkova. They were literally a chariot. They were batil b'tachas habitul telekut. Just like a chariot, whatever way the rider in the chariot turns the harness or whatever, that's the way the chariot goes. That the chariot is b'tachas, the chariot is batil legamri to the reichiv b'teicha merkova. Meaning, like the Alter Rebbe brings it in Tanya in about 3 places, even in the first chelik of Tanya, that are always hein hamerkova in Perek Kov Gimel and Perek Lamed Daled. That they always hein hamerkova, that they were absolutely batel b'tachas habitul to Elokus, meaning that they were just like what you might describe as a lifeless chariot, or wherever the Eivishter moved or was miskalet, they were just media for his kilo or whatever his rotzen was at any given point. So that asks a question: how could a person like Yitzchak, how do he have a mistake? How could he want a certain thing and even take action in the matter and it just never came out of it anything? Because if we say that he wanted to bench Esau and Esau wasn't a kli, even the two Tamim that we mentioned just a minute ago, then could they say Yitzchak ineffectively benched him. There was no point in the whole thing, and therefore Rivka Imenu got in and she made sure the brothers went to Yaakov of a mitzad Yitzchak. But what did he have in mind? He wanted to bench Esau. If you can't bench somebody that he's bechlal not shy to the whole bracha, and that was a mistake. So therefore the Rebbe says, no, we can't say that Yitzchak had a mistake. It's not shy. No, then, in not having a mistake, there are 2 different leifanim. You can have a mistake at the actual moment that you're carrying the thing out, but ultimately speaking, you get your way. In other words, you have, if we take the matter literally, at the moment that you do it, you have a mistake. It turns out that you were really right. Even though at that particular moment, I'd like to make an inquiry if in other classes you also look as if you're asleep, even though you might be able to tell that you're not. But I would like to inquire if in other classes that's also the same approach. Anyway, I'm fed up with it, okay? I don't come into these classes to teach droopy people. Isamela, you can say that the person had a mistake, but he proved to be right. Now that's an interesting one, because you say that he had a mistake at the beginning, which means that he really didn't have a mistake. It was just that at that particular moment, the situation was not ready that what he had in mind could actually be carried out. There's a way to go around some other way, but eventually it reached its aim. And that's a way of saying that he had a mistake, b'shas oisa harega, but he didn't have a mistake ultimately. In other words, he got what he was after eventually. So that's what we could say, that the Rebbe is being maramas here, that by giving this koyach habira mistakenly, as it were, in inverted commas, to Yaakov, because he really meant to give it to Esau, but eventually he got his way, because Yaakov, through the union of learning Torah, be a gear, and particularly through the whole oifen of learning Torah represented by Talmud Bavli, then you come to such a high madrega that it's possible to be Mavara Esau. And so therefore the Rebbe says that alidei the union of that brocha and the proti hatoida, dafki with that power, it becomes possible to be mavara Esau. I mean, he can't be mavara Esau. And the taich is that through the ribu usage of the Torah and the yigiyash of the Torah, then you're eventually able to do the impossible. You can eventually be mavara even Esau. And in that Maimah the Rebbe writes, the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach says clearly that the time has come that Esau has already been misparer, it's already finished. And the Gan Tzara is, in the most unbelievable tragedy, Achmanin Itzlan, the Holy Elosia, is that the Yidden have told Esau, Dafki Bisman, that he's already been misparer. They've told him the Hepech of Torah, Mam Mish Hepech Kol Ha'inyonim. Whenever he's fallen back into a terrible situation where he's been bluffed. And had he been told the emes, then he wouldn't have done certain things that he's done. Dafki Biomeinu and Bisman Ha'achrein v'chule v'chule. And the whole birud eventually took place. And the Far Yitzchak ultimately didn't have a mistake. The Rega who he had a mistake. Ultimately, that's what the Rebbe is hinting at. The Rebbe says, Dafki with that koy yuchel levara Esau. It's going to take a long time. It's only a giving of power at that time, because it went to Yaakov, not to Esau. Through that, it'll eventually be possible to be mavara even Esau. And through that there will be the gilui of the Eivishter. Mamish boivin shall atzmus ain't saved, but that's the gilui of Mashiach. That's the gilui of the Yosid Lovei. But that's the union of the Tain of Atzmi in atzmus ain't saved. Shashu im atzmis mami. That's a very amazing line where the Rebbe brings in a whole new point that he didn't actually make in the mind.
What does it mean that Yaakov has been Mevayer Esau? And if Esau has already been Mevayer, then what's our learning of Bavli and all that?
How, if Esau has already been Mevayer, then why aren't better things happening? That's what you're asking.
Also,
so I already told you, Rahman, I don't want to repeat terrible things. That they came along, a whole bunch of Yidden, and they got together, I think what they call a Medina, and it's going around in a horrible circle. For 50 years, now it's come back to the point where they're saying they don't want the Medina anymore. They're prepared to give it, Rahman in Islam, to Hitler, to the Nazis which exist in our generation. Rahman in Islam. So had they not done that, had there been somebody who had the guts to get up and say to Esau exactly what was the emes al Pitur, that he would have been makabel. In other words, he would have been bottled. I feel about he was already bottled. But then they twisted him back into the most horrible situation that we find today. That's what the Rebbe said.
Mashiach is here.
Yeah, in other words, that the Koyach HaMashiach has already carried out what was necessary to be done. But then you didn't have Rahman in its land. They have a choice, and they can put their foot in a way that can disturb the whole Tachlis HaKavodah as well. No? So therefore we need grace rachamim. We need tremendous, unbelievable rachamim. Yes, and people going around just living in absolute, bubbles, living in little bubbles, which I hope that the Abisha won't prick the bubbles, because if he doesn't, it'll be very, very, very unpleasant. Let's go further. Praying and praying ad Masai. That's what it's written, that the Eibishter will give you V'hainu, Masha Oma Elikim Hevin Darcho. Why is it written? We said the Shem Elohim is not a big Maila. There's a much greater Hashem, which is the Shem of Ayah. He said that means what we saw in the Pasuk in Yeshaya Novi. We said there's a certain Indian a level in Torah where only Elohim Havin Darcha, only the Eibishter knows and understands its way. And we saw that was the Helemo Atzmi, the Ein Seif, the Mishom Koach HaBirurim Hanal. But that's the Yichud that the Torah with Atzmas Ein Seif Mamish. That's called the Inyan von Elohim, because sometimes the word Elohim can refer to the Inyan von Atik, as well known. According to the Rizal, there's a very high usage of the word Elohim, which means even higher than the Shem Havaya. Kimavur in the Kuti Torah also Ba'ariches, and therefore we say Elohim Havin Darko. Now, we don't mean the Hela V'Hester of an Elohim, but we mean as our level in Elokus, which is so high that it can't be given any other name except for something which indicates it's beyond us. But that's the Indian of the Shem Elohim. So therefore he said that's what's nirmaz in the pasuk of Yeshaya Novi, Elohim Havin Darko. The Mishom Koach HaBirurim Hanal. V'zehu v'yiten lecho shenosen loi b'chinas u'madreigezu, that he gave to Yankov of that ability, or that Helemo Atzmi Mamish the Torah's miyuchad in Ein Seif, and in Atzmas Ein Seif, in order to be Mavara the Inyan from Torah, and eventually through that to be Mavara even Esau. Over Medrash Rabbah Esau v'yiten lecho ho Elohim. And the Medrash teaches, Vayitein lecho es Elokusei, that the word Elohim doesn't mean a name of the Eibishter, but it means the idea of divinity. In other words, that the Eibishter gave you his divinity. He gave you, like, how do you call it, Elokus, divinity. Hainu, b'chinas helemo atzmi, it means the same idea, that he gave you his Elokus. In other words, the Madrega of Elokus is mitzad atzmusei, which basically the two inyonim mean much the same thing. But the Nakud of Elokus is a different teretz in the usage of the word Elohim, because Elokus means the etzem concept of divinity. In divinity gufa, that in which was shire to all the protei haTorah. So mitala shamayim ze mikro yesh lema tehine tal hu b'chinas hamshocha milmayla, as well known. Tal comes tafki milmayla. Rain comes through, the moisture goes upwards from the ground and causes an isarus delatata, and that causes the clouds, and then the clouds give rain. But dew comes from directly from above, from the atmosphere, from the air, from whence it comes, without an arousal milmata. And if a tal indicates the inyan from milmaila lamata, and he said that's the inyan of Ur Yosha de Torah. And that's what we saw, that generally speaking, the mikro is called Chochma Berura. So therefore, the first word of that bracha is not referring to all these inyanim in Torah which are Ba'er Choizer, no Dafke. Says the Rebbe, that's the beginning of the Torah, how it was even at Matan Torah, the infant Ur Yosha. Because Tal is something that comes only Milmaila Lamata. Ubchinas Mishnah, Halachis, Vagadatis, of the other words in the blessing, they indicate those aspects of Torah which were given only after the Yerida, the Chet Eitzadas, and after Moshe Rabbeinu hit the stone. Heim Ubchinas Proti HaTorah, Shem Ubchinas Tal Lumis, the hidden levels in Chochmah, the Sheresh of Chochmah, how it is in Chochmah Shebekeser, Ve'ika Habiru Hu B'Halachis. So the Rebbe, it comes out that ultimately speaking, the final purification of the Torah and its ability to reveal the power of Torah into the world, and ultimately to be even Mavara Esau, well, that's through the Inyan from Halacha. Dafki through the Inyan of bringing all the Inyanim in Torah. Like we saw the Maila of those Chachomim, that they're Motonu Masik, that they're able to bring the Inyanim of Torah Mamish into Halacha B'Poyel, and the bringing of Halacha B'Poyel into the world. That's the Ika Birur, both in Torah and in the Inyan of Esau. They said Halachas Yeshim B'Mishnah V'chein Agadatas Yeshahem B'Chinas Avarabah. So the Rebbe said that not only Halachas, nor even the Agadatas, what they're detailed in Yonim, but they're detailed in Yonim more in the moral and spiritual side. or they are from the level of Avarabba, like we said earlier in the Maimah, that all those details, even though they cause a lot of effort and struggle, or they really come from the Pneumius of the Ava that the Eibishter has for Yidden, that he Dafki gave them all these things, that they can prepare the world for Moshiach. Meaning Dafki to Yidden, and particularly to Yaakov Avinu, Dafki the effort and the Yigiyah in Agadatas and in Halachas, they should be able to carry out the Indian of Birudim in Torah. What here the word Elokim has the implication of being the Indian from Helen by Esther. Earlier we used it as being an Indian Atzmi, as referring to the very concept of Elokus, the Eibishter, how we use Be'etzem. Here we use it more in the usual way of Yitan L'cho Ha'elikim, that shows the necessity to be Mavarer in the Torah. Elevara Birudim in Torah, Validei Abirudim, Yia Gilui B'chinas Helema Atzmi, Da Ein Seif Mamish, and that'll be Dafki Le'ozim. That's what he said at the end of the last year we had, where he brought the Dafki through Talmud Bavli, even though it's Behelim now, but it'll be Dafki in the Indian from Gilui Atzmis, the Osin Flora.